And the appointment by the president is done on the recommendation of whom?
My appointment was done by the president in his deliberate judgment.
I see. So are there recommendations requested from the two parties, the leader of the opposition and the ruling party?
If I may be allowed to explain,
yes, please.
Council. There are 7 members of the commission. Mm-hmm. The chairman is appointed by a special process as defined by the Constitution.
Right.
There are 3 members who are appointed by the president acting in his deliberate judgment. And there are 3 commissioners who are appointed by the president acting upon the advice or rather request of the leader of the opposition after consultation with the parliamentary opposition parties.
I see. Okay, thank you. That clears it up. So when you say you, in this statement, that you were one of the 3 appointed by the leader of the opposition, this is not correct?
No, that would not be correct.
Okay. In March 2022, can you tell us who were the GCOM commissioners?
22 or 20?
20, I beg your pardon. Who were the GCOM commissioners?
In March 2020, the chairman of the commission was retired Justice Claudette Singh. The commissioners included myself, Says Gunraj, Commissioner Bibi Shadik, now deceased, Commissioner Robeson Ben, Commissioner Vincent Alexander, Commissioner Charles Corbin, and Commissioner Desmond Trotman.
I take it in your capacity as commissioner, you had got to know several of the GCOM executive and staff members in March 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
So will you tell us who was the CEO at the time?
The Chief Elections Officer in 2020 was Keith Lowenfield.
And the Deputy CEO was?
The Deputy CEO was Roxanne Myers.
Who was the returning officer appointed for District 4?
Claremont Mingo.
Now, can you tell us, as an attorney at law, under which section of the Representation of the People Act returning officers are appointed?
I believe it is Section 7 of the Representation of the People Act, which caters for the appointment and, in fact, the oath of office for the returning officer.
And who appoints the CEO?
The CEO, the Chief Elections Officer, is appointed by the Commission.
Now, I want to take you to the 25th of February 2020. Do you recall that day?
I do.
On that day, was there a meeting which included the CEO?
Yes, there was.
And can you tell me very briefly what occurred during the course of that meeting?
That meeting was convened at Ashman's Building. What is Ashman's Building? Ashman's Building was the office of the returning officer for District 4. Additionally, in addition to the returning officer of District 4's office, gazetted office being there was a secretariat for the Chief Elections Officer, and there was additional space for other work of the Commission to be conducted there. On the 25th of February 2020, a meeting was convened by the Chief Elections Officer for all of the foreign observers, the overseas observers that had been accredited and who had mounted missions to Guyana by that time to observe the 2020 elections.
Thank you. Now, you said there at that building, areas were set up for the operation of the secretariat and so on. Was there an area for GCOM commissioners like yourself?
Yes, there was, Senior.
And where was this?
This was on the part of the second floor. May I detail the nature of the meeting of the 25th of February?
Well, perhaps not detail, but if you could give us the gist of it.
The meeting of the 25th of February, at that meeting, quite importantly, the then Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, detailed to the persons gathered there, which included several members of the observer missions, it included myself and several other GCOM officials. It was at that meeting that the decisions and the protocols that we discussed at the commission were made public. That is to say, how the tabulation exercise after polls closed would be conducted. And at that meeting, the Chief Elections Officer detailed, of course, with my concurrence, because that was the procedure that we had discussed and approved, that after polls were closed and the statements of poll started to come in to the office of the returning officer, the returning officer will then set a time after consultation with the persons who are entitled to be a part of that tabulation process at a convenient time. And then once that time was set, all the persons who are entitled to be present under law would be notified of that time, and then the process will start.
And, well, let's get back to, and did he say anything else as to what the process would include?
He detailed at that meeting as well how the tabulation process would be done. Now, the reason for setting up a convenient time is this, that the persons or representatives who were entitled to be present for the purposes of efficiency would be required to have copies of statements of poll which they received. And the importance of that further is so that the returning officer would be in possession of statements of poll, as would the persons who are participating in the process be in possession of statements of poll. And as a consequence, the tabulation process will entail comparison of statements of poll with statements of poll.
Good. Now, let's go back to the GCOM building. You said there was an area for you on the second floor. On the floor above, is this where GCOM's secretariat was?
The CEO secretariat.
The CEO secretariat,
Yes.
I beg your pardon. And did the GCOM commissioners have access to that floor?
No, the GCOM commissioners, at least this GCOM commissioner, did not have access to that floor. In fact, persons who had access to that floor were issued with a designated handband, a designated marker, as though you're going to a fete, to identify their access to that floor. I was not issued with any such accreditation.
Do you know whether any other commissioners received that kind of accreditation from the CEO?
I am not able to say at this point.
Or did you see any other commissioner wearing that band?
Not as I can recall.
Now, are you familiar with Miss Emily Dodson?
I am.
And on the night after the close of polls, did you see her?
I did see her.
And at that time, what was your understanding of her role?
Miss Emily Dodson is an attorney at law admitted to practice in Guyana. She's a member of the Guyana Bar Association. The Guyana Bar Association was one of the entities or agencies that was accredited as a local observer. Miss Dodson was a local observer, so accredited.
And around midnight of the night after the close of polls, did she speak with you?
Yes, she did.
And what did she say?
This is midnight on the 2nd of March.
Yes.
Polls were closed 6 hours earlier.
Sure.
Miss Dodson, several other observers, party agents, etc., were standing just outside of the office of the returning officer,
Yes.
which is referred to as the tabulation center.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And did she speak to you?
She did. She
What did she
informed me that the returning officer, Mr. Mingo, had commenced the tabulation process.
Now, to the best of your knowledge, had any notification been sent out to the parties?
No. As a consequence of her speaking to me, myself, in fact, when she spoke to me in the presence of Commissioner Vincent Alexander. She notified both of us simultaneously of what was happening in the tabulation room.
And what did you then do?
Myself, Ms. Dodson, and Commissioner Alexander proceeded into the tabulation room to Mr. Mingo.
And did you speak to him?
I did.
Did you remind him of what had been the agreed procedure?
I did remind him of the agreed procedure.
And what was his response, if any?
He agreed that he was in breach of that procedure, and as a consequence, in my presence, contact was made with representatives of several political parties, chief among them the chief scrutineers or chief elections agent of the People's Progressive Party Civic, Mr. Zulfikar Mustafa, and Ms. Amna Ali, the similar representative of the APNU plus AFC party.
Because those were the two major parties in the election.
Yes, they were. I also understand that contact was made with named representatives of the other parties.
And was the process halted?
The process was halted with the understanding that it will resume or properly commence with 2 a.m. being the agreed time.
And I take it that at 2 a.m. The process commenced.
As far as I can recall, yes.
And did you and other members of the commission then go to your designated area on the second floor?
Yes, we did.
Now, I want you to explain a little bit what GCOM's commissioners do during this period of time.
Sure. After the close of poll, several copies, each of which is considered an original, of the statement of poll generated by a particular polling station are created. The first copy is placed at a conspicuous place outside of the polling station. Copies are given to party agents who are present in the polling station at the time of the count of the ballots.
Right. Now, I don't want to preempt you, but I want to ask you this. Is it correct to say that at GCOM headquarters, 2 sets of statements of polls would be arriving, one for the RO and one for the CEO?
Almost correct. I would just want to offer one small clarification.
Sure.
Of those statements of poll that are prepared and publicized as previously stated and given to party agents, 2 copies are then prepared in specially designated envelopes. One for the chief election officer and the other for the returning officer of the particular district in which that polling station is situated. In the case of District 4, both would have come to the same place merely because of the coincidence of offices of the CEO and RO for that district.
Right. And what was your role? What was your role as commissioners in relation to the SOPs brought for the CEO?
The statements of poll that are designated for the CEO comes to an area that is controlled by logistics, a department of the Secretariat of the Guyanese Elections Commission. These statements of poll, these envelopes that are at this point ought to be sealed, are open. The statement is logged as received by the logistics department or a staff member of the specially designated staff member of the logistics department. They are then compiled, like we don't get one at a time, they're bundled, sometimes sequentially. And then a bundle is passed to the commissioners who are gathered there.
Right. Now, is it correct that the area where the commissioners were during this process was not too far from the receipt station?
Correct.
Shortly after 2 p.m. on the 3rd of March 2020, did the commissioners start to receive SOPs?
Could you repeat the time and date, please?
Okay, so the 3rd of March, so this would be the night of the election, early in the following morning.
Correct.
Right.
2 a.m. on the 3rd of March, at around 2 a.m. on the
Yes.
3rd of March.
It's correct to say that commissioners started receiving SOPs?
Correct.
So when you receive your SOPs, this is what I'm trying to get from you. When you receive the SOPs, what do the commissioners do?
At the time of printing of the statements of poll, certain security features are embedded on those documents. One of the first tasks that the commissioners, and when I say commissioners, at all material times during the conduct of this process, it is a bipartisan process. That is, representatives of both sets of commissioners that I detailed earlier on are present. It will not be done one without the other. The first check that we make is to ensure that those security features are present. Once that is ascertained, I took the personal responsibility of logging every statement of poll that passed my hand.
So the reason you look for the security feature is essentially to make sure that what you are reviewing is a genuine document.
Yes. And after that process is concluded, it is initialed. The statement of poll that has now passed through this process is initialed twice. One by each, it's initialed by two commissioners, one from each side.
Okay. And after you all do that confirmation process, what becomes of the SOPs which go through your hands?
Those SOPs are then copied. A copy was then produced or provided, one copy each for each side, and the originals are then forwarded to the Information Technology Department for inputting, then for onward transmission to the CEO.
During the course of that night, did you all receive any report from the CEO? Whether oral or written? Would you like to refresh your memory?
I would appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm asking you to look at pages 2 going on to 3, paragraph 15. Right, so during that period of time, did you all have any kind of meeting with the CEO?
This process, which commenced just shy of 2 a.m., continued until daybreak. Shortly after daybreak, probably in the early hours of the morning, we had a meeting of the entire commission, at which the CEO provided a report, firstly, on a national level as to what was happening nationally in terms of the elections, close of polls, any logistics issues, etc. And then specifically what we were doing. At no time
just a second, let me ask you a question. Pause. During the course of that meeting, did the CEO indicate to you that he had any problem at all in terms of personnel for the RO for District 4's office? Did he bring that to your attention?
In short, no. Generally, he did not even identify any other issue with the election generally.
Okay. Now, I take it you all continued, and at around lunchtime that day, the chairman of GCOM held a press conference.
That is correct.
And you participated in it.
I was present during the conduct of the press conference.
During your time in Ashman's building as a commissioner, were you also making checks on the process in the RO's office?
I was.
And what did you find? This is during the course of the day of the 3rd of March.
So we're one floor above. During the conduct of our process, we will naturally take breaks, bathroom breaks, water breaks, etc. I utilized that time invariably to slip downstairs into the RO's office to check on the conduct of the activities there.
And was it your understanding as commissioner that the tabulation process was going to, after it began, was going to continue until it had been completed?
Yes, it was intended at all material times that it will start and proceed until completion.
Had anyone prior to this day from GCOM told you that any other procedure had been contemplated?
No.
Had anyone told you that there was a plan B in case something went wrong?
No.
Now, at about 7 that night, did you get a call from Miss Sonia Parag of the People's Progressive Party, PPPC?
Yes, I did.
And having received that call, where did you go?
Before I answer your question, Senior, could I put into context where we were at that time? This was now Tuesday evening. We had, at that time, the commission had agreed to pause its process of scrutiny of the statements of court with an intention of resuming the next morning. As a consequence, I had just left the Ashman's building when I received that call from Ms. Parag. As a consequence of receiving that call, I returned to the Ashman's building, which I was a few minutes away, and discovered that most of the GCOM officials and most of the party officials had left as the process was stopped at that time.
Did you see the RO?
I don't recall if I saw it.
Now, before you left the building, as you have just described to us, before you left, had you spoken to the RO?
I had spoken to the RO very late that evening.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us how he appeared to you?
He appeared very well to me.
Did he offer any complaints to you?
Absolutely none.
Did he tell you anything about not having staff to continue the process?
He did not.
Did he tell you that the process could not continue until completion?
He did not.
Now I'm going to take you to the 4th of March 2020. Did you return to Ashman's building around 8 a.m.?
I did.
And when you got there, was the RO there?
I don't recall seeing him when I got there that morning.
And do you recall seeing the CEO there? Would you like to refresh your memory?
I would like to.
Yes, it's a lot of content and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So let's look at page 3, and if you can quietly read paragraph 20 to yourself before we continue. Thank you. So, do you recall seeing the CEO when you got there?
I did not see the CEO when I got there early in the morning.
And were other commissioners there?
Yes, they were.
Were you told anything by GCOM staff? Did GCOM staff tell you they were waiting on the RO to begin?
I observed that the process was had not commenced or recommenced in the tabulation center.
Mm-hmm.
And upon inquiry, I was told by staff of GCOM that they were awaiting the arrival of the returning officer, Claremont Mingo, to recommence.
So I take it the commissioners then went up to their area and you all began doing what you had, you continued doing your process.
Our process, that's
Yes.
correct.
At some time later that day, did you go down to the tabulation room, the RO's office?
I did.
And is it that when you arrived there, you were told by one of the party agents that GCOM staff had started using spreadsheets instead of SOPs?
That is correct.
So having heard that, did you return to the second floor?
I returned to the second floor almost immediately, and there, at that time, all of the commissioners were present, engaged in the scrutiny process. And I updated them with my observation and the information that I learned, and requested that a meeting of the commission, the entire commission, be convened to discuss this issue that had now arisen.
One moment, Mr. Conrad. What date was it when you revised about the commencement of the use of the spreadsheet? What date was that?
This was on the 4th of March.
Fourth.
Yes.
Thank you.
Was such a meeting convened?
It was.
And was the CEO a part of that meeting?
Yes, he was.
Did the CEO advise the commissioners of anything in relation to that? When I say that, I mean the use of the spreadsheets as opposed to the use of the SOPs.
The issue of the use of the spreadsheets as opposed to the statements of poll by this time had become an undeniable one. It was actually happening. The CEO sought to justify the use of the spreadsheets in place and instead of the statements of poll, and on the issue of, on the ground of expediency and efficiency. The commission deliberated. Of course, this was a marked departure from the procedure that was established and agreed upon by the commission, and as a consequence, after extensive deliberation and I would say terse discussions, it was agreed by the commission that the use of spreadsheets would be discontinued and the established procedure of using statements of poll would be reverted to.
Did you sorry?
Mr. Conrad, you say the commission took a decision not to use the spreadsheets.
Yes.
And to revert. Was there an actual vote? I mean, is this a fact that the majority of the commissioners said, no, we do not support the use of the spreadsheet? And I mean, I'm just trying to find out.
Commissioner,
yes.
I can't say with any degree of certainty that it was a unanimous decision of
Majority decision.
Yeah, it was a majority decision, I can say that. I can say that for sure. What I can't say for sure was whether it was a unanimous decision. But I can say with every certainty I can muster that it was a majority decision.
Was that the view? Did the chair, I imagine this meeting was presided over by the chairman of the commission.
Yes.
After the discussions and deliberations and that decision you speak of was taken, did the chair say anything or issue any directive to the CEO, perhaps to the effect, well, we've deliberated and so you must now return to the use of statements of
Yes. A direct instruction was given to the CEO, who was part of the meeting, who was a part of the discussion, and who participated in the deliberation in coming to that decision.
I imagine there are no minutes of that meeting. There were no
I doubt that there would be minutes of those meetings, because it was obviously in the course of the activity.
I'm a little alarmed at that. Here, you told us that preliminary to the tabulation process, GCOM's decision was that statements of poll were to be used in the tabulation exercise.
Correct, sir.
And you say there might not be a recorded decision anywhere in the records of GCOM about that decision, touching process and procedure?
That's not what they said, sir.
Tell me, remind me then.
The decision in relation to the procedure for the tabulation was discussed at length in commission meetings prior to the
Commencement of the process.
prior to elections day.
Okay.
It was agreed upon. Pursuant to that agreement and decision of the commission, the chief elections officer publicized it up to and including at the meeting of the observers, where this settled position, this settled procedure was made public to the observers, to party stakeholders, etc.
Anything in print was made public on this procedure?
I would not be able to say, but I would hazard a
Don't
Yes.
guess, don't guess. Let me ask this. Would you say that it was the clear and general understanding of the CEO of commissioners that the process to be employed for tabulation or verification, there seems to be an interchangeable use of those words, would be by reference to statements of poll?
yes, sir.
It was that clear understanding
The understanding, sir.
and agreement.
Yes, the understanding and of the decision was clear enough to be evidenced by the process commencing utilizing that method at 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
Yes. Now on the 4th of March, you received some information, as a result of which you went to the commission to say, we should meet because there is now a departure from what was agreed upon.
Yes, sir.
And the CEO was present at a meeting convened to discuss this departure.
Yes.
At that meeting, GCOM, you say, reasserted the position
Correct?
clearly by a majority vote. This process must be by reference to statements of poll.
Yes, sir.
The CEO was present.
Yes, he was. It was the
You don't know if any notes, any record was made of that. Clearly was an important decision.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was an important decision.
It was an important
Were
decision.
any notes or any record made?
To say that the note or a record was made would be hazarding a guess.
Okay.
But the CEO was tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that the decision of the commission was executed.
Yes.
And before execution was communicated to the relevant statutory officer, in this case being the returning officer, Claremont Mingo.
So, prior to the elections, this process by which there was going to be reference to statements of poll was clearly communicated to the CEO. On the meeting of the 4th of March, again, GCOM 1 disagreed with the use of any spreadsheet, and 2 reaffirmed that the process has to be by reference to statements of poll.
Yes, sir.
Again, this decision was clearly communicated to the CEO.
Yes, it was.
Good. So, when there was a departure from reference to statements of poll to the use of a spreadsheet, this meeting was convened. At that meeting, the CEO said that the use of the spreadsheet was for the sake of efficiency and expedience.
My words, sir.
Your word.
My words. To quote him, that will speed up the process.
That would speed up the process.
Yes.
The clear inference, therefore, is one, that the CEO was aware that there was a departure from the agreed position of the Commission that the process had to be by reference to statements of poll.
Yes, sir.
At that stage, there was no decision by the Commission to depart from that agreed process.
At that stage or at no other time was
No,
there.
please, just deal with what
answer.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you at that stage, when the CEO announced that this was to speed up the process, GCOM had not taken a decision to implement any measure
GCOM did
to
not.
speed up any process.
No.
Okay. And so, therefore, it means, and the clear inference is, the CEO knew and had apparently given his approval to a process that had not been approved by the Commission.
Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Could I
No.
continue?
Hang on. I want to ask you something. You told us at the very beginning of your evidence that you're also an attorney at law. Yes? So is it not correct to say that ROPA provides for the verification of SOPs with SOPs?
Correct?
So when the commission made its direction to the CEO, you were simply asking him to follow the law.
That is correct?
Right. So did he give you an explanation as to why he had departed from a legal process?
Save and accept the justification that he attempted that the use of spreadsheets will speed up the process. That was it.
And were you all at all able to make an inquiry? Well, I suppose, would it have been appropriate for you all to make any inquiry of the RO?
At that time, senior, it was not necessary as our point of contact with the secretariat or other statutory officers would have been the CEO, who sits ex officio as part of the commission meetings.
Good. Now, does or will you as commissioners have a recording secretary? Do you have an assistant assigned to you in GCOM?
We have a legal officer who serves as a scribe to the commission.
And during the course of that meeting with the CEO, was that legal officer there?
I can't recall.
So let's move on. Meeting is had, you will sort out the issue with the CEO. Did you subsequently go down to the tabulation room to confirm that the process had resumed and had resumed in accordance with law?
I did, and I confirmed that the process had resumed, and in keeping with the decision just made by the commission to reaffirm the use of spreadsheets statements of poll to statements of poll.
And when you went downstairs, I take it this was on the ground floor?
Yes,
When you went downstairs, did you then realize that there were additional issues which had arisen.
I did.
And did you then try to reach the CEO again?
I did try to reach him.
Well, before we go further, Mr. Gunraj, it seems to be a little bit of a conflict if you were to look at paragraph 53 of the statement.
Might he be allowed
Yes,
to say?
certainly.
So,
I returned to the tabulation room after our meeting and saw that the process had resumed and that SOPs were being used for tabulation. Paragraph 23.
Yes,
There were additional issues which arose and the process did not resume. So there seems to be some inherent conflict.
I believe the resume there should be continued.
Did not continue.
Did not continue.
That seems to make sense.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it began.
It began
No.
and then it stopped.
Thank you.
so we had got to the point where you said you tried to contact the CEO. How did you try to reach him?
On his mobile phone,
And were you able to reach him?
he did not answer.
Did he call you back?
He did not.
This was minutes after the meeting.
Not a few minutes. It would have been perhaps around an hour.
Okay.
Did you, well, having realized what was going on, did you then alert the other commissioners?
I did alert the other commissioners. In fact, I also alerted the chairman. And there was an intervention by the chairman at the RO's level. I think, I believe that there was an intervention by the chairman at the RO's level, but I can't recall.
I see. Can you recall whether the chairman went down to the RO's office and spoke to the persons there?
She did, and in fact, when she did, she sought to assuage the situation. One of the issues that arose that caused the process to stop was a claim by the staff there of tiredness and feelings of unwell, persons being unwell, etc. And the chairman sought to balance the issues of the staff with the need to have the process proceed to completion.
But in your account, the RO seems to have faded away. Where was he?
This is the evening of
The
the
4th.
Oh,
by the evening of the 4th, Your Honor, the RO, I believe the RO was,
you can look at your statement to follow the sequence, but
I believe by that time, the RO had fallen sick and was taken to hospital.
on the evening of the 4th. It
No.
appears that he was taken to hospital one morning.
No, but that would have been the morning of the 4th that he was taken to hospital.
I see.
So by the evening of the 4th, he was obviously still not there.
Right. So I appreciate that so many events must have happened during that period.
Too many, perhaps.
So if for any reason you can't recall, just say so. You may not even have recall to put it in your statement, all right?
Correct.
So let's move on. Now, you said that you had tried to reach the CEO, he didn't take your calls, the commissioner, the chairman came down, tried to address the situation. Did you subsequently see the CEO at Ashman's building?
I did see him at Ashman's building, and I will accept your invitation, Senior, to refresh myself because I can't recall what happened next.
Okay, so will you look at page 4, paragraph 24? Yes, did you see him?
I saw the CEO after a very long and protracted wait, and after numerous and multiple attempts to secure his presence.
And was this at Ashman's building?
It was.
Did you at that point have a conversation with him about the pause or the pause in the process?
I did. I reminded him of the necessity of getting the process done in an efficient and timely manner. I reminded him of the decisions that were taken by the Commission. I reminded him of the duty of the Guyana Elections Commission and his specific statutory duty to deliver results of the elections to the electorate in a timely manner. And more importantly, when he raised, I believe he raised the issue of unavailability of staff. I reminded him of the availability of a multitude of deputy returning officers who were appointed by virtue of law to carry out functions. And I also reminded him of the statutory powers of those deputy returning officers so appointed.
Now this, from what you have told us before, is it the first time that the CEO is telling the commissioners anything about having staff problems?
Yes.
And when you say there were a multitude of deputy returning officers, can you now recall for which district you were talking about?
At that point, all reference and conversation was about District 4, because all of the other districts by this point had either completed and declared their results or were on the verge of so doing.
And is it correct that there were about 70 deputy returning officers for District 4?
Correct, 70.
Well, having told or having reminded the commissioner about the availability and the high number of deputy returning officers empowered by law to continue the process, what did the CEO say?
If my memory serves me correctly, there was at least one or two deputy returning officers actually present, and there was a refusal of the CEO to utilize their services or to have them utilized to complete and to continue the tabulation process.
Did he give a reason for that refusal? Okay, perhaps I should be fair to you in my question. Do you recall whether he gave a reason for his refusal?
I believe the reason he gave for his refusal was that he did not, he was not going to appoint a deputy RO, or he was not going to detail a deputy returning officer merely because of his presence, but he preferred to have someone of his choice.
So despite what the law permitted, the CEO was saying that he wanted to make a choice out of all of the DROs.
That is correct.
Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to take you now to the 5th of March 2020. Did you leave Ashman's building at around 5 a.m. that morning?
I did.
And when you left that building, was there anything preventing you or any obstacles placed outside of the building?
No, there was none. I left freely, and I left the building freely, including the precincts of the building.
Now, I forgot to ask you this at the beginning. As GCOM Commissioner, did you all have special accreditation, identification, badges, anything like that?
I did. In fact, the badge that I wore and continued to wear for months it bore my picture, my name, my designation, and the signature of the Chief Elections Officer on it. Further, Senior, in addition to me being tagged personally, the vehicle to which my vehicle was clearly tagged and marked with a sticker,
Yes.
not a sticker, a card, assigned to me, which bore the stamp of GCOM, which clearly said my name, my vehicle number, and my designation, and it was issued by the Chief Elections Officer.
Okay. Now, do you recall returning to Ashman's building at about 7 that morning?
Yes, I do.
And when you returned, can you tell us what observations you made?
When I returned to the vicinity of Ashman's building at around 7 a.m. on the 5th of March, it was virtually impossible for me to access anywhere close to the building.
Why so?
Barricades were erected at a perimeter of about 1 block away from the building. Barricades were erected, and I am sure of this because my driver attempted at each one of these barricades to gain entry at High and Leopold Streets, on Hatfield Street behind the Parliament building, on Brickdam and High Streets, and on Hatfield and Cross Streets.
Were these barricades being manned by anyone?
These barricades were being manned by a very, very heavy police presence.
And did you make representations to the police officers there indicating that you were a GCOM commissioner and that you were entitled to access the building?
I did at each of the points that I just detailed. In fact, at least 2 of these points, I came out of the car myself, I displayed my badge to the ranks present, and they refused to allow me entry.
Did they give you any explanation? Sorry, I beg your pardon.
Mr. Ganraj, would security issues have been a matter that would have been discussed by the Commission?
Not in great detail, Commissioner. But I am aware, as part of the report that we received at the Commission level from the CEO, that arrangements were being made with the Guyana Police Force in relation to security of our processes.
The barricading of the access areas to the Ashman's building. Should the commission have been advised of the need for those barricades?
We were never advised of the need for it.
Well, I understand that, but should the commission have been advised?
I would want to say yes, sir.
But just let me follow up by saying, obviously, therefore, at a level other than the commission, someone else took that decision without communicating with the commission.
Yes.
But some things are within the purview of the chief elections officer, is it not? Is it everything that you must be consulted on as a commissioner?
Commissioner, the chief elections officer is a creature of the commission, and as a consequence, his actions ought to be he ought to act under the direction and control of the commission.
Yes, I understand that. It's like a board of directors which has a CEO.
Perfect
But
example.
the CEO has certain operational discretion and so on, under the general supervision of the board. So I'm just trying to find out, was it that if the CEO perceived the need for security arrangements that she had to ask the chair to convene a meeting to get approval for that?
No, I would not say that the necessity was there to convene a meeting of the commission to approve it, but such a marked departure from what previously obtained, at least we would have been or should have been informed as to the reason for that.
Well, before we get to reason, were you informed that there was going to be deprivation of access to Ashman's building by commissioners?
Absolutely not.
Right. So were you able to eventually make it past the barricades?
After several attempts, I made contact with then Deputy Commissioner of Police, Maxine Graham, and moments after, who inquired as to which barricade I was at the specific time. Moments after I informed her where I was, a senior police rank proceeded to that barricade and informed and instructed the junior ranks to allow me to access.
Do you now recall who that senior officer was?
That allowed me access?
Yes.
That officer, I believe, was Mr. Boudran.
Now, when you had been trying to get past the barricades and so on, did you attempt to contact the CEO?
Of course I did. Once again without success.
Thank you. Did you then enter the building?
I did enter the building.
And when you got in there, can you recall, well, I don't think this is controversial, did you then observe that there were party agents, observers, and another GCOM commissioner there?
Yes, there were.
And a little later, did you see the chairman of GCOM and other commissioners?
Yes, I did.
And did the CEO also arrive a little later?
He did.
So this having happened, what did the commissioners do?
Somewhere around that time, I believe that the commissioners, there were several incidents that occurred during the course of that evening of March 4th into March 5th. On the
Remember, we are now on March 5th, huh?
right, so there were several events which occurred of the night
Right.
from March 4th into the morning of March the 5th. I believe it was on that morning of March 5th. If I'm not mistaken, I believe you were attempting to have a commission meeting, or you were requesting a commission meeting.
Did you restart your own process? Were you able to restart your own process, which the commissioners, as you say, had been conducting before?
Might I be refreshed?
Certainly. Page 5, paragraph 27. Certainly.
Mr. Conrad is aware we can interrupt.
I'm just going to advise.
What? Yes, sir.
Okay, you could hold on to it and refresh your memory in your break. Would you like to have some tea or anything? Do you have enough